Just minutes ago in the Oval Office, Donald had a massive meltdown, also known in common parlance as a temper tantrum, after an appearance on 60 Minutes by President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky. Donald continued to spew his victim blaming nonsense towards Ukraine, just as a reminder, a country that used to be our ally that was illegally invaded by Russia, formerly our enemy, with these comments being the latest in a string of insults that he has been rage posting on his failing social media site. Take a look at this clip, and I'll discuss it on the other side.
Zelensky, sir, about his offer to purchase more Patriot missiles.
All right, he's always looking to purchase missiles. You know, he's against. Listen, when you start a war, you got to know that you can win the war. Right? You don't start a war against somebody that's 20 times your size, and then hope that people give you some missiles.
Okay, let's just stop for a second and remind ourselves about what actually happened here. Russia, formerly our enemy, attacked Ukraine illegally, formerly our ally. So, Donald, you fucking monster, would you stop telling this lie? Or how about this? The people listening to this lie, why don't you correct it in real time? For those of us who still live in reality, because it is an obscene and dangerous lie that does what? It diminishes Ukraine and it strengthens Russia, which is ostensibly the opposite of what should be happening here. Now, of course, last night's 60-minute broadcast featured news about Ukraine in the wake of a massive Russian attack on civilians last week. And it was released before an even deadlier attack on Palm Sunday, a very religious high holiday that people who profess to be Christians all over the world, including the United States, should care about. In typical fashion, Donald took again to his failing social media site and posted a tirade characterizing this as fake news. Fake news about an attack we know happened. Quote, I just finished watching 60 Minutes, the fake news show. Now tonight with two separate but highly inaccurate stories about quote unquote Trump. It's your fucking name. It doesn't need to be in quotes. They're at it again. The people at CBS fake news just don't get it, unquote. He then went on a long-winded, completely incoherent rant about Kamala Harris. Remember her? The 2020 election being stolen, which it was not, and more fake news, finally finishing out with what appeared to be a threat to take away CBS's license and further punish the network. He said, quote, they should lose their license. Hopefully, the Federal Communications Commission will impose the maximum fines and punishment, which is substantial, for their unlawful and illegal behavior. CBS is out of control at levels never seen before, and they should pay a big price for this, unquote. Yes, at levels never seen before, like nobody has ever seen before. Is anybody else sick of this obnoxious and stupid hyperbole? I mean, he applies it to everything. If everything is like nothing we've ever seen before, right? Then isn't everything just like the same? It's mind-numbingly stupid. And honestly, I worry because this has been so baked in and normalized that people don't even blink anymore, including the networks he continues to threaten. So shocking that once again we have a massive tantrum from Donald and it doesn't stop. He's still going. I wonder what struck a nerve. Well, maybe the fact that he is losing control over everything. And even though, don't get me wrong, a lot of people are still kowtowing to him and kissing his ring and obeying in advance, some people are actually starting to stand up and notice that everything this idiot does is destructive to the American people and to America's standing in the world. So let's take a look at exactly what 60 Minutes said that made Donald lose what little is left of his mind. So the episode also featured an interview with with Zelensky discussing the war and visiting Kryvyi, his hometown, where last week 9 children were killed when a missile struck a playground in which they were playing. The interview discussed also U.S. support for Ukraine, well, I think best characterized as wavering and uncertain, the state of the war, and Zelensky's clash with the Trump regime. Zelensky also invited Donald to visit Ukraine in order to survey the damage done because, for those of us not paying attention, it isn't fake news. These are things that actually happened. It seems like pretty anodyne coverage of a world event that occurred, right? I mean, Zelensky, other than that clip from the Oval Office, again, in which Donald looked like a complete and utter fool, Zelensky didn't say anything to provoke Donald. Zelensky has learned to walk a very tight line here. But somehow, Donald found something to overreact to because he's allergic to anything he deems unflattering. Before we go further, please hit like, share this video, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. We are pushing to get to 400,000 subscribers. Every little bit helps. And as independent media, your support helps us reach more people and keep this going. Donald isn't just coming after 60 Minutes. He's coming for Zelensky, and he's abandoning Ukraine further too. Not that he needed an excuse, mind you. We all know that Donald is doing everything in his power to distance himself from the war because he refuses to take responsibility and is desperate to stay on Putin's good side. Watch his response to the press after Palm Sunday's vicious attack.
I think it was terrible, and I was told they made a mistake, but I think it's a horrible thing. I think the whole war is a horrible thing.
You mean it was unintentional?
They made a mistake. I believe it was. Look, you're going to ask them. This is Biden's war. This is not my war.
I want to pause for a second and address something that the voice alteration may have blocked out. The reporter even asked this, quote, "When you say they made a mistake in the attack, you were told they made a mistake. Do you mean it was unintentional?" Unquote. Clearly trying to provide Donald with some context, or worse, an out. But Donald, as he's wont to do, doubled down because he's stupid and incapable of owning up to anything. So basically, Russia launched its largest attack of 2025 over the weekend, claiming the lives of 34 Ukrainians, 2 of whom were children, and 117 more. And that's just days after another attack on civilians, which killed 9 children. Donald's response was simply, "Hey, this isn't my fucking problem. What do I care?" And Putin made a mistake. Who does that benefit? Who does that benefit? Well, it benefits Donald, and it benefits Putin. I may have missed something, but I thought thanks to the deluded idiocy of 74 million Americans, this guy is president of the United States of America. I didn't realize that he gets to pick and choose which global issues carry over from the last administration. I thought he became the guy in charge and responsible for everything on day one. I mean, he even promised that, right? He was going to solve everything. Calling these mass casualties a mistake, it's obscene and it's insulting. If it weren't already obvious enough, this is just further proof that Donald's refusal to take action is because he is completely and utterly beholden to Vladimir Putin. And, it should be obvious already, Donald Trump has absolutely no will of his own. All he wants in life is to acquire more money and more power. And if that means doing the bidding of people, men who are stronger and smarter than he is, so be it. And it doesn't matter who he throws under the bus, whether it's the people of Ukraine or the people of the United States of America. Of course, in his typical fashion, Donald blamed Biden and Zelensky, of course, for Russia's carnage. This morning, he even said they, quote, allowed for this travesty to begin. He posted the following, quote, "The war between Russia and Ukraine is Biden's war, not mine. I just got here, and for 4 years during my term, had no problem in preventing it from happening. Putin and everyone else respected your president. I had nothing to do with this war," unquote. Wow, that is just the kind of responsible leadership this country needs, isn't it? This guy will never take responsibility for anything, and it is going to put this country in an increasingly weakened and precarious position vis-a-vis the world community, because nobody has any business trusting us anymore. Seeing the leader of the free world refuse to condemn a violent war that was started by Russia without any provocation whatsoever from Ukraine, all in the name of being Putin's puppet, is utterly horrific. And the fact that not one person in the fascist Republican Party is willing to stand up and say something is not just despicable, it is a sign of how much trouble we're in. Donald isn't just stopping at blaming Zelenskyy for the beginning of the war, which is delusional and insane. He even went so far as to call Zelenskyy the dictator in a recent speech, which you may remember preceded that debacle in the Oval Office. Putin, who is an actual murderous thug of a dictator, right, is responsible for the murder of dozens of Ukrainians in the last week alone. He is responsible for the deaths of thousands of Ukrainians, the kidnapping of thousands of Ukrainian children, and war crimes that are unspeakable. Still, Donald Trump stands up for him. Zelenskyy knows the game Donald's playing. He also knows that to some degree, he has to play it himself. He knows that the Trump regime is working against him and working with Putin. He even called it out in that 60 Minutes interview. It is beyond my comprehension that this even needs to be spelled out. We know that Russia has had designs on Ukraine since 1991. We know that Russia has been looking for the first opportunity to invade Ukraine. Zelensky's right. Ukraine's the victim. They're the victim of Russian violence. But now, and this is in part because the Biden-Harris administration didn't do enough when they had the chance, they're also the victim of the Trump regime's incompetence and, quite frankly, criminal behavior and favoritism towards our former enemy, Russia. Zelenskyy is also right about J.D. Vance, who is just an anti-American, pro-Russian puppet himself. He accused Vance of supporting Russia by showing disrespect to Ukraine during a joint meeting and misleading visitors by taking them on a propaganda tour. Because Donald clearly cares more about appeasing the man who's holding the reins around his neck, Vladimir Putin, than he cares about the lives of innocent Ukrainians, children and adults alike. This does not bode well for us. Because if he doesn't care about Ukrainian children, why do you think he's going to care about your children? And then, of course, when he gets called out for his hypocrisy, for his incompetence, for his lying, and quite frankly, his complete lack of humanity, he just throws a temper tantrum and blames everybody else, because that is the kind of delusional, damaged, broken toddler he is. Please take a second and like and share this video. Be awesome if you could subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to us in podcast form, please follow us and give the show a 5-star rating, because it really does help other people find our content. Thanks.